When we first get started in photography, it's inevitable that we will have those moments where we get home after a shoot, review our images, and realize, crap, half of these are out of focus, they're not sharp, they're underexposed, they're not what I thought they were as I was making the images. You're gonna have those moments. That is just a given. It's part of the learning your craft and your skill part of photography. It just is. But eventually we figure out how to make a properly exposed image, how to keep our subject in focus, how to make our images tack sharp and eliminate any sort of blurriness or imperfection from a technical aspect. But once we get there, then what do? Well, we go back to the beginning and break all the rules. Hi, everybody. For those of you who are new here, my name is Zach. I'm a photographer and arts administrator based in Santa Barbara, California. And today we're talking about motion blur in images. So for the past year, I would say, I've been experimenting with motion blur in my work, and I'm absolutely loving it. This was born from an obsession with the work of a photographer named Ben Sasso, who I completely fell in love with and was just mad about his work roughly a year or so ago when I found his work. The colors, the textures, the mood, the emotion that he portrays in his images is just, it's something that really captured my attention and really got me excited about photography. Before I found his work, I was sort of in a place with my own work where I was sort of stagnant. I didn't really know where I wanted to go. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to make. But seeing his images really got me excited about photography again. And so I started incorporating some of his style of imagery in my own work. I'm very disinterested in perfection when it comes to capturing the world. The world is not perfect. The world is messy. It's imperfect. Me and my own work and the types of images that get me excited about making art and making photos, it's about capturing the reality of the world and capturing the reality of emotion and of mood and of moment. I think bringing motion into the frame with a little bit of motion blur really helps capture that, whatever that is. So I've been incorporating this technique into my portrait work, my wedding work, other types of work that I've been doing, and I'm just thrilled with the results. So how do we do it? This is what I use. It is a 2 to 5 stop variable ND filter, and I actually have the Polar Pro Peter McKinnon version, which is quite expensive, but it gets the job done. I think any sort of variable ND filter could help you do this. Basically, what the ND filter does is it cuts out light, which means when this is on our lens, we can shoot at a lower shutter speed without overexposing the image. So essentially, this allows us to have more control over our environment in brightly lit situations. Now, if you're new to filters, you can get filters in various filter thread sizes. Every lens has a filter thread. It's the size of the front of the lens where filters screw on. The filters that I have are 77 millimeters, which means they can fit on my 24 millimeter lens. They can fit on my RF 70-200. And I have a step-up ring, which is just a sizing ring that allows my filters to fit on a smaller filter thread. In this case, I have a 72 to 77 millimeter step-up ring, which means I can attach my ND filter to the step-up ring and then use it on my 50 millimeter lens. Once the ND filter is on the lens, you have the option to choose how much light you want to cut. 2 stops of light is obviously less than 5, right? So if we're in a really bright situation, you want to cut out a lot of light, you can turn this ND filter all the way to 5 stops to cut out 5 stops of light. If you're in a somewhat bright situation, but you don't want to darken the image too much, you could just stick with 2 stops. The variable aspect of the filter is just convenience. It just lets you choose how much light you want to cut with one filter. Once the filter's on the lens, what do we do? Usually when I'm shooting motion on my R6, my shutter speed is set to around 1/20th of a second. That's the general range that I like for motion. It's not too blurry. It's not too sharp. I like 1/20th. Generally, I keep my aperture fairly wide and ISO fairly low. So this is what the ND filter with a step-up ring looks like when it's on my 50mm 1.2. This is how I would use this filter on this lens. And essentially what I do is I change my drive mode to continuous shooting, and I change my autofocus to face tracking servo, and I just shoot and move the camera as I shoot. It's literally that simple. And as you do this more and more, you'll sort of get a feel for what kinds of motion you want to bring into the frame. I keep IBIS turned on when I do this, and that sometimes gets me an almost blurry image, but not quite. And I'm still able to achieve as much blur as I want. It's not like the IBIS will hold you back from doing that. So I keep IBIS on and I just move the camera. You could also achieve an effect by asking your model to move, which I sometimes do, and sometimes it creates an interesting effect. But often I find that I can do most of the work myself just by moving the camera. What I find when I do this is that I like to take a lot of images, so the high-speed shooting helps with this, because not every image is going to work. Some of them will just look blurry. But I guarantee you that as you look through the images that you take from a shoot, you will find some that you really like, that for whatever reason have an artistic quality to them that really speaks to you, that really works for that moment and that aesthetic that you're going for. So I'd encourage you to shoot in high speeds if you can, in bursts, get a bunch of photos, try moving your camera in different types of ways, find something that works for you. But the basic components in order to achieve this look are an ND filter, a slow shutter speed, and a little bit of movement from your camera. So there you have it. That's the secret to achieving an artistic motion blur in your images. Some of you might hate the blurriness. I don't know. If you do, you probably aren't watching this video. But I encourage you guys to go out and try this, whether or not you like it, just to see what happens, just to give yourself an experiment, to give yourself a task. Anytime we give ourselves a task with our camera, helps us learn about photography, helps us learn about our camera settings, help us figure out what aesthetics we like and don't like. So I think any type of experimentation when it comes to photography is probably a good thing. Let me know how you do. Share your photos with me on Instagram. I would love to see them and see what you guys make. If you have questions about this down below, something that I didn't touch on that I didn't answer, please feel free to ask me. I'm happy to help. If you're new here, consider subscribing. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps. Thank you as always for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.